The moment Sebastian Donovan stepped through the door of Marcus's new suburban home, his entire world shifted on its axis. His friend's housewarming party was in full swing, but it wasn't the carefully selected furniture or the tasteful decor that caught his attention. It was the woman with the brilliant smile standing by the bay window, her auburn hair catching the last rays of sunset as she laughed at something someone had said. "Earth to Sebastian," Marcus waved a hand in front of his face. "I was giving you the grand tour of my new place." "You know the reason you're here?" Sebastian shook his head, tearing his gaze away from the mysterious woman. "Sorry, got distracted. The place looks great, Marcus. Real estate investment paying off already, I see. Better than I expected." "And the neighborhood's fantastic," Marcus grinned, following Sebastian's earlier line of sight. "I see you've spotted Amelia Harper. She moved in next door last month. Great lady, works as a marine biologist at the aquarium downtown." Sebastian adjusted his watch, a nervous habit he'd developed over years of high-pressure business negotiations. As CEO of Donovan Shipping, one of the largest private shipping companies on the East Coast, he rarely found himself at a loss for words. But something about the way Amelia's eyes crinkled when she smiled made his usual confidence waver. "Introduce me," Sebastian said, trying to sound casual. Marcus laughed. "The great Sebastian Donovan, shipping magnate suddenly interested in marine biology. This I've got to see." As they approached, Amelia turned, her green eyes landing on Sebastian with curious interest. Close up, she was even more captivating, freckles dusted across her nose, and her simple emerald dress complemented her eyes perfectly. "Amelia, meet my college roommate, Sebastian Donovan." "Seb, this is Amelia Harper, my new neighbor and the only person who's offered to help me with my disastrous attempt at a garden." "Nice to meet you," Amelia said, extending her hand. "Marcus has told me all about his brilliant friend who runs some big company. Though he failed to mention you'd be at his party." Her handshake was firm, her palms slightly calloused the hands of someone who worked with them, not just on keyboards and touchscreens like most people he knew. "The pleasure's all mine," Sebastian replied, holding her hand a moment longer than necessary. "And what Marcus probably failed to mention is that I was the one who convinced him to buy in this neighborhood in the first place. Then I guess I have you to thank for my new neighbor," she smiled. "Though I'm still deciding if that's a good thing, especially after hearing his music choices at 7 a.m. on Sundays." Marcus groaned. That happened one time. The three of them fell into easy conversation, and Sebastian found himself captivated by Amelia's passion when she spoke about her work. Unlike the people he typically met at business functions, her enthusiasm wasn't manufactured or strategic. It was genuine in a way that felt increasingly rare in his world. "So you're telling me you literally swim with sharks?" Sebastian asked, leaning against the kitchen counter as the party continued around them. "Not all the time," Amelia laughed. "But yes, part of my research involves direct observation. It's actually a common misconception that they're mindless killing machines. Most species are quite docile unless provoked. Unlike shipping executives," Marcus interjected with a smirk, "those are dangerous in any environment." Sebastian rolled his eyes at his friend's teasing. "I'm not that bad." "Says the man who negotiated a multi-million-dollar deal while having appendicitis," Marcus countered. Amelia's eyebrows shot up. "Seriously," Sebastian shrugged, suddenly self-conscious. "The deal was time-sensitive." "And your appendix wasn't?" Amelia asked incredulously. "It was a calculated risk," Sebastian replied with a smile that had charmed countless business partners. But Amelia merely shook her head, unimpressed. "I work with predators every day, Mr. Donovan. That smile might work on your board members, but I'm immune." Sebastian felt a surge of interest. Most people were either intimidated by his position or eager to gain his favor. Amelia seemed to be neither. As the evening progressed, Sebastian found himself gravitating back to Amelia whenever they were separated by the natural flow of the party. They debated environmental shipping regulations. She was for stricter ones. He argued for more realistic implementation timelines, discussed their favorite spots in the city. They both loved the same hidden coffee shop near the harbor and discovered a mutual appreciation for classic films. "I should probably head home," Amelia said eventually, checking her watch. "Early start tomorrow. We're introducing a new rescued sea turtle to the rehabilitation tank." "I'll walk you," Sebastian offered immediately. "Since we're practically neighbors." Amelia gave him an amused look. "Marcus said you live downtown in some penthouse." 15 minutes away is practically next door by New York standards," he countered. She laughed, the sound warming something in his chest. "It's literally next door, Sebastian. I can see my front porch from here." "Then allow me the pleasure of a 30-second walk under the stars," he persisted, surprising himself with his eagerness. Amelia hesitated, then nodded. "All right, but fair warning if you try to mansplain marine conservation to me again, I'm releasing the kraken." They said their goodbyes to Marcus, who gave Sebastian a knowing look that he pointedly ignored. The night air was cool and crisp as they stepped outside, the suburban street quiet compared to the bustle of the party. "So," Sebastian began, suddenly unsure what to say now that they were alone. "So," Amelia echoed, amusement dancing in her eyes. "Are all shipping CEOs this persistent, or is it just you?" "Just me, I'm afraid. One of my many character flaws. Along with working during medical emergencies," she teased. "That was one time," he protested. "Though I admit, work-life balance isn't my strong suit." They reached her front porch, a charming little area with potted plants and a porch swing. Sebastian found himself reluctant to say goodbye. "I enjoyed talking with you tonight, Amelia. Would it be too forward to ask for your number? Perhaps we could continue our debate on sustainable shipping practices over dinner sometime." Amelia studied him for a moment, her expression thoughtful. "Most men ask me out because they want to hear about swimming with sharks." "I'd rather hear about what you think of international maritime carbon emission standards," Sebastian replied honestly, "but the shark stories would be a bonus." A slow smile spread across her face. "Hand me your phone," he did, watching as she entered her number. When she handed it back, her contact was saved simply as Amelia H. "Good night, Sebastian Donovan," she said, ascending the steps to her door. "Good night, Amelia Harper," he replied, waiting until she was safely inside before turning to leave. As he walked back to his car, Sebastian felt lighter than he had in years. There was something refreshingly straightforward about Amelia. No hidden agendas, no strategic networking, just genuine conversation. In his world of constant negotiations and power plays, her authenticity was like a breath of fresh air. He was already composing a text message in his head when his phone buzzed with an incoming message from Amelia H. "For the record, your shipping statistics from earlier were outdated. I'm sending you the latest research paper. Do your homework before our dinner debate." Sebastian laughed out loud in the quiet street, feeling a challenge spark to life inside him. For the first time in a long time, he was looking forward to something that had nothing to do with quarterly reports or board meetings. 3 days later, Sebastian found himself standing outside the city's aquarium, a building he'd passed countless times but never entered. He'd suggested dinner at one of the city's finest restaurants, but Amelia had countered with an invitation to visit her workplace first. "If we're going to debate marine conservation," she texted, "you should see what we're trying to conserve." He spotted her waiting by the entrance, dressed in khaki pants and a blue polo shirt with the aquarium's logo. Her hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, so different from the soft waves at the party, but no less appealing. "You came," she said, looking genuinely surprised. "Did you think I wouldn't?" Sebastian asked, handing her the coffee he'd brought remembered from their conversation about their shared favorite cafe. "Honestly, I thought there was a 50-50 chance you'd cancel for some emergency board meeting," she admitted, accepting the coffee gratefully. "CEOs tend to be flaky in my limited experience." I rescheduled 3 meetings to be here, Sebastian confessed. But no emergencies today, I promise. Amelia's eyes widened. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, he said simply. Besides, I've been reading that research paper you sent. I have questions. Her face lit up with a mixture of surprise and pleasure. You actually read it, all 47 pages. I made notes. She laughed, shaking her head in disbelief. You're not what I expected, Sebastian Donovan. Is that good or bad? I'm still deciding, she replied with a teasing smile. Come on, I promised you sharks. What followed was the most educational afternoon Sebastian had experienced since business school. Amelia took him behind the scenes of the aquarium, showing him research areas tourists never saw. She introduced him to colleagues who were studying everything from coral reef restoration to penguin behaviors. Her passion was infectious as she explained their conservation efforts and research programs. But it was when they reached the large shark tank that Sebastian truly understood why Amelia had chosen this career. She transformed completely, her knowledge encyclopedic as she pointed out different species and explained their behaviors. When one of her colleagues invited her to join the scheduled feeding, she excused herself to change into a wetsuit. Sebastian watched from a special observation area as Amelia slipped into the tank with practiced ease. Her movements were confident but respectful as she navigated among creatures that most people feared. She looked completely in her element, and Sebastian found himself mesmerized. She's something else, isn't she? Said an older man who had joined Sebastian at the observation window. Remarkable, Sebastian agreed, unable to take his eyes off Amelia. Dr. Harper has revolutionized our shark conservation program in just 3 years, the man continued. I'm Dr. Bernard, the aquarium director, and you must be the shipping CEO she's been talking about. Sebastian tore his gaze away to properly greet the director. Sebastian Donovan. Has she mentioned me? Dr. Bernard chuckled. She's been grumbling about outdated shipping practices all week. It's the most animated I've seen her about anything not covered in scales. Sebastian smiled, oddly pleased by this information. I'm trying to learn, that's why I'm here. Good, Dr. Bernard nodded approvingly. We need more business leaders who are willing to listen. The oceans need all the allies they can get. When Amelia emerged from the tank, hair wet and eyes bright with exhilaration, Sebastian felt something shift inside him. There was something captivating about seeing someone so completely in their element, so passionate about their purpose. Impressed. She asked, toweling off her hair as they walked toward her office so she could change. Beyond impressed, Sebastian admitted. I've negotiated with foreign diplomats who were less confident than you are with those sharks. Amelia laughed. Sharks are honest. They never pretend to be something they're not. They don't care about your status or bank account. Unlike foreign diplomats, Sebastian added dryly, or shipping CEOs, she challenged with a raised eyebrow. Especially shipping CEOs, he acknowledged with a self-deprecating smile. Though some of us are trying to evolve. After Amelia changed, they headed to a small seaside restaurant, not the Michelin-starred establishment Sebastian had initially suggested, but a casual place where the chef greeted Amelia by name and promised to serve them the day's sustainable catch. You come here often? Sebastian asked as they were seated at a table with a view of the harbor. At least once a week, Amelia confirmed. Tony only serves sustainably caught seafood, and he visits our research center regularly to learn about which species are being overfished. Sebastian looked at her with newfound respect. You're really committed to this, aren't you? It's not just a job for you. It's my life's work, she said simply. The oceans are the heart of our planet. If they die, we die. It's that straightforward. Their conversation flowed easily, moving from environmental concerns to personal histories. Sebastian told her about growing up in his family's shipping business, taking over as CEO 5 years ago when his father retired, and his efforts to modernize the company. Amelia shared stories of her childhood by the coast of Maine, her fascination with marine life that led to multiple degrees, and her determination to make a difference in ocean conservation. So no partner waiting at home. Sebastian asked eventually, the question he'd been curious about all evening. Amelia shook her head. My last relationship ended 2 years ago. He was a marine photographer we met during a research expedition, but he wanted to travel constantly, and I wanted to build something permanent here. She took a sip of her wine. What about you? No shipping heiress or corporate attorney in your life? Not for lack of my mother's trying, Sebastian laughed. But no, the last serious relationship I had ended because I was too devoted to work. At least, that's what she said when she left. Was she right? Amelia asked, direct as ever. Sebastian considered the question honestly. Probably. I believed I was building something important, something that would last. But lately, I've been wondering what it's all for if there's no one to share it with. A comfortable silence fell between them as they both looked out at the harbor, where ships moved slowly through the darkening waters. Those are some of yours, aren't they? Amelia asked, nodding toward a cargo ship with the Donovan logo visible on its hull. Yes, Sebastian confirmed. Carrying electronics from Asia if it's the one I think it is. And what sustainable practices do you use on that particular ship? She challenged with a playful glint in her eye. Sebastian couldn't help but laugh. You don't pull punches, do you? Not when it comes to the oceans, she replied unapologetically. Fair enough. That particular vessel is actually one of our older models, but I can tell you about the fleet upgrades we're implementing next quarter. We're investing in more fuel-efficient engines and exploring alternative fuel options. Amelia leaned forward, genuinely interested. Really? What kind of alternatives? Sebastian found himself outlining Donovan Shipping's sustainability initiatives, plans he rarely discussed outside of board meetings or investor presentations. What surprised him was how closely Amelia listened, asking insightful questions that sometimes highlighted gaps in his company's approach. You should hire a marine conservation consultant, she suggested as they shared a dessert. Someone who understands both the business realities and the environmental necessities. Know anyone qualified? Sebastian asked, watching her expression carefully. Amelia smiled. I might have some recommendations, but they won't go easy on you just because you bought them dinner. I wouldn't expect them to, Sebastian replied. The best advice rarely comes from yes men. As the evening drew to a close, Sebastian found himself reluctant to end their time together. They stood outside the restaurant, the sea breeze carrying the salt scent of the harbor. Thank you for today, Sebastian said sincerely. Both the tour and the dinner, I learned more than I expected. You're a surprisingly good student for a CEO, Amelia teased, then added more seriously. Thank you for actually being interested. Most people's eyes glaze over when I start talking about marine conservation. I find your passion captivating, Sebastian admitted, taking a chance on honesty. It's refreshing to meet someone who cares so deeply about something beyond themselves. In the soft glow of the street lamps, Amelia's expression softened. Would you like to see more? We're doing a beach cleanup this weekend. Very unglamorous work, but impactful. I'd love to, Sebastian replied without hesitation, surprising himself with how much he meant it. He walked her to her car, and before she got in, he took a chance and leaned down to kiss her cheek. Good night, Amelia Harper. She turned slightly at the last moment, and his kiss landed at the corner of her mouth instead, not quite her lips, but close enough to send a current of electricity between them. For a moment, they both froze, caught in the unexpected intimacy of the moment. Good night, Sebastian Donovan, she finally said, her voice softer than he'd heard it before. As he watched her drive away, Sebastian realized he was already looking forward to picking up trash on a beach, something that would have seemed inconceivable just a week ago. Amelia Harper was changing his perspective, and he wasn't entirely sure where it would lead, but he was eager to find out. The beach cleanup turned into dinner afterward, which led to a Sunday morning hike along coastal trails. Soon, Sebastian found himself restructuring his work schedule to create space for Amelia in his life. For the first time in years, he was delegating tasks he would normally handle himself, leaving the office at reasonable hours, and even taking entire weekends off. Marcus noticed the change immediately when they met for their monthly drink at their favorite bar. "So," Marcus said, sliding into the booth across from Sebastian, "are you going to tell me what's going on, or do I have to pretend I don't know you're dating my neighbor?" Sebastian couldn't help the smile that spread across his face. "Is it that obvious? You've missed 2 calls from me in the past month, which has never happened before. And Mrs. Abernathy next door told me she's seen a handsome man in expensive suits visiting Amelia regularly." Marcus grinned. "Plus, Amelia mentioned it when she dropped off some tomatoes from her garden." "We've been seeing each other for about a month," Sebastian admitted, "and before you ask, yes, it's serious, at least for me." Marcus studied his friend's face. "I've known you since we were 19, Seb. I've never seen you look like this over a woman, not even Catherine." Sebastian nodded, acknowledging the reference to his last serious relationship. "This is different. Amelia is different. Different how?" Marcus pressed. Sebastian considered the question, taking a sip of his whiskey. "She challenges me. Not just professionally, though she does that too. She makes me question things I've always taken for granted. She sees the world differently than anyone I've ever met." "Sounds exhausting," Marcus joked. "It's exhilarating," Sebastian corrected. "Do you know what we did last weekend? We went to this marine research station up the coast. Spent the whole day helping tag juvenile sea turtles for a conservation study. I was knee-deep in seawater for hours, getting sunburned and covered in sand. It was one of the best days I've had in years." Marcus laughed, shaking his head in disbelief. "Who are you, and what have you done with my friend who once refused to go to the beach because, and I quote, 'sand is nature's glitter, it gets everywhere and never leaves'?" "I stand by that statement," Sebastian chuckled. "But some things are worth the inconvenience." "You're falling for her," Marcus said, his tone shifting from teasing to serious. Sebastian didn't hesitate. "I've already fallen." The realization had come to him gradually over the past few weeks. It wasn't one dramatic moment, but a series of small ones. Amelia's determined expression as she explained complex marine ecosystems to school children visiting the aquarium. The way she challenged his company's environmental policies without apology. How she looked first thing in the morning, sleepy and soft in his arms. Her unrestrained laughter when he tried and failed to paddleboard for the first time. "Have you told her?" Marcus asked. "Not yet," Sebastian admitted. "It's still early." "But you're going to," Sebastian nodded. "Soon, I'm just waiting for the right moment." The right moment came unexpectedly 3 weeks later. Sebastian had been working late, finalizing a major contract that would shift a significant portion of Donovan Shipping's fleet to more environmentally sustainable practices. Many of the changes had been inspired by conversations with Amelia, though she didn't know the extent of her influence yet. When he finally left the office after midnight, exhausted but satisfied, he found himself driving to Amelia's house instead of his own penthouse. They didn't have plans to meet, in fact. She was probably asleep already, but he felt a powerful need to see her. To his surprise, lights were still on in her living room. He hesitated before approaching her door, wondering if he was overstepping. But before he could decide, the door opened, and Amelia stood there in pajama pants and an oversized sweatshirt, her hair piled messily on top of her head. "I saw your car pull up," she explained. "Everything okay? Everything's great," he said, suddenly feeling foolish for arriving unannounced so late. I wanted to see you." Her expression softened and she opened the door wider. "Come in." "I was just reviewing research data and losing track of time." Sebastian stepped inside, comforted by the now familiar surroundings of her cozy home. Books on marine biology lined the shelves, photographs of ocean scenes decorated the walls, and a small tank of colorful fish bubbled peacefully in the corner. "You look exhausted," Amelia observed, leading him to her comfortable couch. "Sit, I'll make you some tea." I don't need tea, Sebastian said, catching her hand and gently pulling her down beside him. I need to tell you something. Concern flickered across her face. That sounds serious. It is, he agreed, taking both her hands in his. I just finalized a new contract that will convert 30% of our fleet to hybrid engines that reduce carbon emissions by 40%. We're also implementing new ballast water treatment systems to prevent the spread of invasive species, and we're establishing a foundation dedicated to marine conservation research. Amelia's eyes widened as he spoke, her expression shifting from concern to astonishment. Sebastian, that's incredible. The impact of those changes will be enormous. There's more, he continued. We're establishing a partnership program with marine research institutions, including yours, if they're interested, to ensure our practices evolve with the latest scientific understanding. And I've personally endowed a scholarship for students pursuing degrees in marine conservation. Why? Amelia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Why all this now? Sebastian took a deep breath. Because I'm in love with you, Amelia. And falling in love with you has meant falling in love with what you love: the oceans, the creatures that live in them, the delicate balance of it all. You've changed how I see the world, how I see my responsibilities in it. Tears welled in Amelia's eyes. You did all this because of me. Because of you, because of us, because it's the right thing to do, Sebastian said, reaching up to brush away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. Loving you has made me want to be worthy of you. You were already worthy, Amelia whispered, leaning into his touch. But this. Sebastian, do you understand what this means for marine conservation efforts? I'm beginning to, he smiled. Though I'm sure you'll spend the next several decades educating me further. Amelia's breath caught at the implication of his words. Decades? If you'll have me, Sebastian said softly. I'm not proposing not yet. That would be rushing things even by my admittedly impatient standards, but I want you to know that's where my heart is heading. I love you, Amelia Harper, more than I thought possible. Amelia launched herself into his arms, nearly knocking him backward on the couch. I love you too, she whispered against his neck. Even when you're being a stubborn, overconfident CEO. Especially then, he asked hopefully, wrapping his arms around her. Especially then, she confirmed, pulling back to look at him. Because even at your most stubborn, you still listen. You're willing to change to grow. That's rare, Sebastian, particularly in men with corner offices and personal assistants, he laughed, feeling lighter than he had in years. I'll remind my personal assistant you said that. Amelia smiled, then grew serious again. I need you to know something too. I'm not in love with Sebastian Donovan, CEO of Donovan Shipping. I'm in love with Sebastian, who gets excited about sea turtle conservation, who argues passionately about efficient global trade, who brings me coffee exactly the way I like it without being asked, who looks at me like I'm something precious even when I'm covered in fish scales and smelling like the research tanks. Sebastian felt his heart expand in his chest. That's the only Sebastian that matters. 1 year later, Sebastian stood on the deck of the newly christened research vessel Amelia Harper, watching as marine biologists and conservationists explored the state-of-the-art floating laboratory that would be traveling with Donovan's ships to conduct research in international waters. You named a ship after me, Amelia said, sliding her arm around his waist as they watched the scientists excitedly examining the equipment. That's either incredibly romantic or terribly presumptuous. I was aiming for romantic, Sebastian replied, pressing a kiss to her temple. Though I notice you're wearing the other romantic gesture I offered. Amelia's hand automatically went to the elegant engagement ring on her finger, a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, reminiscent of water and sea foam. This one I definitely approve of, she smiled. Though I'm still not sure about having a ship as my namesake. It's a Donovan family tradition, Sebastian explained. We name our most important vessels after the most important women in our lives. My father named ships after my mother and grandmother. And now me, Amelia said softly, understanding the significance. And now you, Sebastian confirmed. The first of many traditions we'll share, Mrs. Soon-to-be Donovan. As the sun set over the harbor, painting the water in shades of gold and crimson, Sebastian reflected on how completely his life had changed in just over a year. What had begun with a chance meeting at his friend's housewarming party had evolved into the most meaningful relationship of his life, altering not just his personal world but his entire business philosophy. "What are you thinking about?" Amelia asked, noticing his contemplative expression. "I'm thinking that I owe Marcus the best man gift in history," Sebastian replied with a smile. "If he hadn't bought the house next to yours, if he hadn't invited me to that housewarming party, we still would have found each other," Amelia said with conviction. "Some things are just meant to be. Even a scientist has to admit that sometimes." Sebastian turned to face her fully, taking in her beautiful face, now so dear and familiar to him. "Then I'm very glad we were meant to be," he said, leaning down to kiss the woman who had unexpectedly become the love of his life, the center of his world and the compass guiding him toward a better future for himself, for his company, and for the oceans they both had learned to cherish.